Kerry Rhodes, your thoughts on the Lakers doing LeBron a solid in drafting his son in the second round.
Well, that's all fine and dandy. That's cool. We already, I thought, should have expected that at this point. But the narratives that have been running wild, I mean, based off the nepotism piece of it, for me is like one of those things where, the Nepo part of this story could have been a beautiful story. It could have been a little kid from Akron, Ohio, going from this rags to riches story where he got so excellent, so great at his job that, his job wanted to give his son an opportunity to see if, he could mirror that success as well. That could have been a beautiful story. It could have been something that was like, that's pretty cool. This one of those stories you can make a movie about, right? Like this little kid came from nothing, made it to something. Now his son has a chance to do it. Cool. We've seen that story before. It would have been awesome. But that's not what happened in my mind. I go back to realism here, and I say realism in this perspective of this stuff has been in the plannings for a long time. It's been in the works. LeBron's move to L.A., it wasn't just a basketball move. It wasn't a legacy move for him. It was something that he already had. So here it was coming to set a base, a foundation for not only himself after basketball, but also his family. He moved his family out here to prestigious high schools. His son plays at all the top places and builds these relationships. And obviously, it's very calculating. Mm-hmm. It's calculating to the point where, coming into this year, we heard rumblings, and we would hear rumblings from, his agent, Rich Paul and those guys and the agents, and planting seeds of, Bronny being the next guy, and LeBron's going to play as long as, it takes for his son to get there. These stories have been leaked for a long time. This isn't something that Bronny has gone through the works and he's gotten really better as a player. And, his dad's playing, but, he'll get to the league and that could be nepotism. But to be on the same team, all of that's just calculating. And so it takes away the Nepo story for me where a person based in reality, I could see this happening, and I'm sure a lot of people have for a long time. So being all taken aback and talking about how this has ruined the league, those stories are, here and there and whatever. But for me, it's about the calculating part. When you have a guy like LeBron he says all these things and is very calculating in the press, for him to kind of be quiet now and seem like he has nothing to do with it at this point is where I draw the line, and it makes me a little bit upset. And it seems calculating because it's not going to be the 55th pick isn't going to change anybody's prospects of being a good team in a year. But it's just the calculating nature of it that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
And I think to go along with that is the realism part of it, and why I think, and for some reason, I think people had a difficult time coming to this conclusion. But you laid out the points of everything that that LeBron has done over these past few years, and the decisions to play for the Lakers, to stay with the Lakers, to reside in now Southern California. They are all calculated, and they're done for a specific reason. And playing with his son was done for LeBron James. Yes. It was not done for Bronny James. And I think that's the point of it, of nepotism a lot of times is to give your son or daughter an unfair advantage over someone else because of who their parents are, an opportunity.
Yes.
And this is an opportunity that others, I don't think, would have gotten at the point. But I also think, Kerry, that we don't think of Bronny in this situation on how much Bronny is being, I don't know if used is the right way in doing so, but it just seemed the ultimate goal. The memes and the pictures were out there that people had designed for months of him together, with a young Bronny James and writing teammates and getting thousands upon thousands of retweets. That was, to your point, all designed by LeBron. But is it good for Bronny? That is the question. And I think that is a part that I know people have had this discussion, so I'm not trying to say that we're reinventing the wheel here because people have. But it's got lost in the discussion. Again, I'm guilty of it as well. I didn't think that the Lakers should have done it. If they wanted to do it, If Bronny was, or if LeBron was a 20-year member of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Cavs had the 55th pick, then go ahead and do it. I didn't think that the equity that LeBron had with the Lakers was enough for the Lakers to make this sort of selection. But I do think what gets lost in all of this is this was done so LeBron could say that he played with his son.
Yes.
And I don't think that we looked at it and have looked at it as, is this an opportunity for Bronny James to play with his dad in that version? Like it's too different. Could Bronny James have really acclimated himself to the college game next year with another year of college and be that more prepared to enter the NBA draft and then have his own career?
Yeah.
It is so short-sighted in the fact that we're looking at this and how it's going to be built and how the NBA is going to profit and how the Lakers are going to profit, when in all reality, the buzz is going to be off the first time they take the court together.
Yes.
That's going to be it.
And you talk about the calculating part of it even more. It's even coming out in this draft. Like, that's calculating. This draft is one of the weakest drafts we had in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, taking the 55th pick on LeBron James' son, and I want to stop saying that. I'm going to give Bronny his platform. But for Bronny to come out in this draft in particular, was best, right? It was calculating. We knew it's a weak draft. So 55 isn't going to hurt anybody by taking that pick. So that's calculated. Also, Rich Paul comes out and says in the second day of the draft, after the first round, anybody that takes Bronny in the second round, he's not going to show up. Like that's not giving Bronny the chance to be his best self.
Correct.
If he was good enough to be drafted by somebody else earlier, why not give him that opportunity? That's why it's calculated. It's at that point we're bringing my son to play with me, and that's the final straw.
Nepotism usually just benefits the child.
Exactly.
And in here it's benefiting the parent.
Exactly.
And that is your point of nepotism versus realism, and we don't know if it's going to benefit. There's select spots. I know people have tried to draw comparisons to coaching and coaching nepotism.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're the same. I don't even think they're close to being the same. There are coaches. There are many coaching spots on staffs.
Yeah.
Because someone becomes a GA somewhere, or the assistant safeties coach, or just a defensive assistant. Bill Belichick's son was a name that has been brought up of possible nepotism. Stephen Belichick being a defensive assistant for the New England Patriots for 4 years, I don't think is nepotism.
No.
That's within the family business.
Yes.
If there was only one defensive assistant job that went to one person that then was allowed to become defensive coordinator, that's a different story.
Yes.
That's a completely different story.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of work that people have to do, and you're right. Anybody that has kids would love the opportunity to make a situation better for their child. I think what got lost in all of this is this really good for Bronny, especially coming off where he had the heart condition.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions about that. And, Doug Gottlieb, who has the Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio that I'm alongside Doug throughout the week, brings up the point, how many medicals would be flagged with the heart condition if he was just a normal prospect?
Right.
Every single one of them would be.
Yeah.
Every single one of them would be, especially for someone with the lack of resume that Bronny had at that level. And we get lost in all of the conversations of what does this mean for the Lakers? What does this mean for LeBron? LeBron's now going to play with his son, blah, blah, blah. And I think we got lost in what does this mean for Bronny. And, hey, he's their parents, but he's also an adult. They would maybe know what's best, but I just don't know if that's the case in this situation.
Any conversation where LeBron James' name comes up, the conversation's about LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no different here.
Absolutely. LeBron James taking a pay cut. People are like, gosh,
he's the most selfless player ever.
Yeah.
Hey, he's a billionaire. I think he's all right. You know what I mean?
And he's going to with the Lakers, and he's done so before, but we'll always find a take somehow, some way. But in this instance of Bronny James, there's no way that you can deny, even as much as they tried to, the camp did over the last month, that Bronny wasn't having any input, just like he didn't have any input with the J.J. Redick situation and that hiring. It's just very tough to believe when you've had all these other conversations and LeBron talking about how Bronny could guard in the NBA right now, which was set at one point over these last couple of months. None of that helps. And then when you try to backtrack it, like the hay's already in the barn, the work's already been done. You've already like you've said what you've said. You can't backtrack from it. But we completely got lost in what is actually best for Bronny James, and I don't think that this necessarily is.
It's definitely not. I mean, what's best for Bronny, and I guess again on the outside looking in my opinion, is it would have made sense for him as an athlete, as a young man. There's no rush to get to the NBA. He's already taken care of financially with his I'm sure with his dad, and he lives comfortably that way. He's also made his own living at USC. I'm sure he had his own endorsement deal. So it's not about the money. He could have went back and really got better at his craft and showed that he was really worth that himself.
I also think it's a different scenario when the father is better than the son. And because the scenarios that we look at throughout sports, the one that pops up the most is Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
Well, Ken Griffey Jr. was just this off-the-charts prospect. Ken Griffey Sr. had a nice career in Major League Baseball, but them playing together was organic because Jr. made his rise and was ready to play and was playing at that top level. And that's why you fell in love with something like that, because it was organic.
Yes.
This feels manufactured.
It's calculated. Yes, sir.